We are back discussing Jamestown. In 1619, a Dutch ship brought 20 Africans to Jamestown. They were given the status of servant and rather like indentured servants. But all of this would change in 1660. From then on, they would become slaves for life. And we'll discuss some of the reasons for that in a later lecture. You're saying, why is a Dutch ship and not an English ship bringing slaves to Jamestown? Well, the English at this time were not yet involved in the slave trade. And so it would be the Dutch or some other nation that would bring the slaves to Jamestown. There is an article that you need to read, The First Black Americans, very short article. Go to D2L, additional readings for test number 1, and this is one of those articles that comes from a magazine, U.S. News and World Report. It will not give you the picture, it will only give you the content of the article, and it'll amount to about half a page for you to read. If on campus, it will pull up immediately from D2L website. If you are off campus, you must put in your library card number, which is the number on the back of your ID card. And we begin today discussing that in 1619, the first legislative assembly in America met. This was the House of Burgesses, and this is in Virginia. This is the start of the Revolutionary War. You say, how could the creation of the House of Burgesses be the start of this Revolutionary War? Well, I'll get to that in a moment. In 1624, the Virginia Company went bankrupt. Remember, it was a charter colony owned by the Virginia Company. Well, it goes bankrupt. And so now the king takes it over and it becomes a royal colony. The king appointed a governor. The king held veto power, but the colony got to choose their own House of Burgesses members. They could even levy taxes. That is why this is the start of the Revolutionary War. If this has become a royal colony, the royal governor, his law is the only law. And to allow the colonists to continue to have a legislative body, this House of Burgesses, to operate. No. You don't get a say in what's going on in your government. You are now a royal colony. The king, via his emissary, is holding full power over legislation, over vetoes, anything. They even allowed them to have a say in levying of taxes. Excuse me, if I were asked by President Biden today, do you like the rate of taxes you are paying? I would definitely say, as probably every American would say, no, we would like lower taxes, please, thank you. To allow them to have the say, the rights in legislating and levying taxes. No. You can comfortably get richer during your life. But if you have a financial reverse, to become poorer is much more difficult to reverse things than to continue in gaining riches. You cannot let the horse out of the barn and then say, oh my, horse, get back in the barn. And the horse says, are you kidding me? I'm enjoying my freedom. For almost 200 years, Virginia and many of the other colonies will experience semi-independence. They have their own legislative body, the House of Burgesses. They are even making decisions on taxes. So then after the 7 Years' War, when England is desperately in need of cash and starts trying to tax the colonists, are they going to say, "Oh, mother, we have enjoyed over 150 years doing our own thing. We would very much like to now be obedient subjects and pay our taxes and do your bidding"? No. You have had generation after generation after generation being born with these freedoms. You cannot later then say, "Oh, we're changing the rules and this is what we want you to do." No, this is where they failed right at the get-go. Allowed them to keep their own House of Burgesses and have a say in taxes. The first shots of the Revolutionary War. Well, from 1622, things began to look up for this poor Jamestown colony. By 1635, the population was 5,000. By 1660, 30 years later, there are 30,000 people living in Jamestown. Jamestown irked the French and the Spanish, neither of which believed England had claim to this territory. Spain had sailed along the coast and claimed it. France had sailed along the coast and claimed it. And now here, England is claiming this territory. But this was a precedent setter for England. Their other colonies had failed. This colony stuck. Possession is 9/10 of the law. We created a colony. It has existed now for almost 60 years, and we are here to stay. So they do not give credence to any other nation's claim that they are on territory that they don't belong on. And we are moving now to the Plymouth Colony. Plymouth was founded by the Pilgrims. These are separatists. They are not Puritans. If you want to call them Puritans, oftentimes they're referred to as Puritan separatists. They are separatists. They were disenchanted with the Church of England, and they said, "We cannot clean, we cannot purify, we cannot fix the Church of England. We must completely depart from it, separate from the Church of England." Thus the term separatists. This is very different than the Puritans. The Puritans said, yes, the Church of England has impurities, it has problems, but we can purify the church, we can clean it up, we can stay with the Church of England and the system. The Plymouth Colony, the individuals came from Scrooby, England, from this one town. And in 1609, 2 years after Jamestown was founded, they immigrated to the Netherlands, to the city of Leiden. We're going to separate from the Church of England by going to a whole nother country and creating a religiously pure English system. But after a few years, they soon realized that their children were losing their English ways and language. And they said, "We're not raising a bunch of Englishmen, we're raising a pack of Dutchmen." So going to another country where another culture and language is spoken is not the correct answer. They therefore decided we must go to the New World. There is no Dutch there. There is no French in the area we're going to, because we're headed to Virginia, where Jamestown is located. In 1620, they set off for Virginia on the Speedwell. The Speedwell, though, had some problems, and they were forced to stop in England and get an entirely different ship, the Mayflower. Apparently what was wrong with the speedwell could not be fixed anytime quickly. Unfortunately, by the time they negotiate for a whole different ship, till they put their goods on it, all of that, it is no longer the spring where you're headed off to the New World and have time to plant crops. No, it is the fall when they are heading off. And this is hurricane season. We are all familiar with hurricanes in this country along the Pacific coast. They come blowing in every fall. Sometimes you'll get some in the summer, but the fall is really the hurricane season. So they are headed out for Virginia, but they get hit by the hurricanes and are completely blown off course. They end up instead in Cape Cod. Here we have the coastline, Massachusetts. In here, my little arrow thing. Let me plug that in. Shit. There we go. Yes. So New England, you got Maine up here all the way down, and here is Cape Cod. And their ship will sail in here right on the coast of Plymouth. An artist's representation of the Mayflower landing at Cape Cod. Yes, you can see it is winter and the snow is all around. They have the ship here with the anchors set, and they would by small boat go to the coast. Another painting, artist rendition, and here you have this one exactly on a U.S. postage stamp. Here it can show you, it looks very blustery, windy. They've got their little ship here pulled up to the coast, and they are disembarking. Their clothes are flapping in the wind. This is cold winter. They would come ashore and survey the area. Is this where we want to end up? And there was signs that Indians in great number had lived there, but they couldn't find any of these Indians. Well, who'd have guessed? Other foreigners had stopped along this New England coast and had left behind their little diseases for which the natives had no ability to resist. And so the native population has pretty much been wiped out by the time the Plymouth Colony gets there. And you will read the article on Squanto on D2L. Another picture here of the landing of the Pilgrims. Yes, by the time they got there, some of them were in very poor shape, very sick. But here you at least don't see the wind blowing in this photo. They have an Indian right here on the shores. And once again, once you read the Squanto article, there were not Indians showing themselves when the Pilgrims landed. They were hiding to see what was going on. Another painting. Once again here you can see the garments flapping in the wind. It is cold, it is blustery, and they've got a fire going here trying to warm up because there's no houses, there's no Motel 6. Here you've got soldiers keeping guard. Another one with his gun in case Indians should attack. Left the ship, they will sign a document. First of all, they had been given a charter. They had been given rights to go to Virginia. Are they in Virginia? Absolutely not. This is not territory controlled by the Crown, by England. And so they create a document of their own and all sign it on ship before leaving permanently for the land. The owner of the Mayflower, the ship, man, he's like, fast, get out of here. land, get your stuff off. I got to head back to England. So they did not have a lot of time to work out all the details, but they do. They signed the Mayflower Compact. And what does the Mayflower Compact say? I love the opening of this. In the name of God, amen. Oh, yeah. We, whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord, King James, by the grace of God, of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, King, defender of the faith. Oh, yes, we are loyal British subjects. God save the King. Having undertaken, for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith and honor of our king and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia. Oh yeah, they admit it. We're nowhere near we should have been. Do by these presents solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one of another covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation. Yeah, not a word we use quite today. And furtherance of the ends aforesaid, and by virtue hereof to enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time, as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience. So they said, hey, we're not where we're supposed to be. There are no laws. There are no rules. There is no government here. It's not England. When we have a chance, we will create laws and rules, and we will then promise to abide by them. It's basically what that says. In witness thereof, we have here subscribed our names at Cape Cod the 11th of November. Oh yeah, it's cold. The 11th of November in the year of the reign of our sovereign Lord, King James of England, France, and Ireland, the 18th, and of Scotland, the 54th, Anno 1620. And they all sign their names underneath. When we get a chance, we will create law and order, and we promise to then abide by it. Another artist's conception of landing at Plymouth Rock. The Plymouth Colony is known for Plymouth Rock. And I remember hearing in my youth of a building in Chicago that in its cornerstone had in its lobby, framed on the wall, a piece of Plymouth Rock. I'm thinking, why would you have a piece of Plymouth Rock in your building? Well, we will come to that. Here we have Plymouth Rock. And about 35 years ago, I got my first chance as an adult to go and see Plymouth Rock. And a friend of mine, I was going out there to visit, said, what do you want to see? And I said, oh, I got to see the rock. So it was February at the time of my trip. There was snow on the ground. It was cold. And pulled into the parking area here at the bottom picture, parking area in front of this open mausoleum type structure. And my friend said, it's too cold. I've seen it before. You go see it. I'll wait in the car. And when you're done looking, you can come back. So I, for some reason, had in my mind that this wasn't a single rock, Plymouth Rock, that Plymouth Rock was like the jutting buttress, the outlying rocky cliff, and not something that they would have actually landed on. So here when I'm looking for this massive, jutting out into the water type of landmark cliff, the Straits of Gibraltar, something, I'm not seeing it. All I'm seeing is this mausoleum thing. And so right now, immediately I knew something is extremely wrong here. I then went in and looked down, and it's all full of sand down in there. And here was this rock, this pebble, on which was carved 1620, the year that the Pilgrims arrived. Come on, switch pictures. Here you see people looking down on Plymouth Rock. You can see what size it is. It's about the size of your dining room table, a little bit bigger. That is all it is, and carved on the side is 1620. I got to see it before 9/11 occurred. After 9/11, let me tell you, there are so many restrictions. You can't go, you can't see, you can't do without a guided tour and police and everything. So I was down here by myself in the sand looking at this thing. I could have walked up and taken a chip off of it. There was no Parks and Recreation watching me. I could have done whatever I pleased. Usually when I go places, I get postcards, but I also have my own camera and I take pictures. And so I thought, well, let me take it. Oh no, when I got down here and close to it, sacrilege of all sacrileges. This is blasphemy. This is just unbelievable. Someone had taken a pair of men's white jockey underwear and thrown on top of the rock. This is the sacred rock. Who could possibly put their underwear on the rock? Well, I didn't want to touch it, and I didn't want a picture with underwear on the rock, so I have no personal picture of the rock. I only have pictures from postcards and online. Speaking of the fact that it is so small, well, it always started out small, but now it's even smaller. Much, much smaller. Sorry, flipping through my notes here. Rock today is small because of numerous reasons. Here we have a good chunk of Plymouth Rock, and where is it located? It is located in Plymouth, Michigan. Sister cities. We'll send you a hunk of the rock. Here is a piece of Plymouth Rock that is in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. Is a piece of the rock that someone chipped off and has written on it, broken from the mother rock by, oops, what just happened? By McLewis Bradford. And he says what date in 1850 he chipped this chunk out. Here we have a piece of Plymouth Rock in Plymouth Church in Brooklyn, New York City on Hicks Street. So there are pieces of the rock everywhere. Only the top third of Plymouth Rock is visible. The bottom 2/3 is below the sand. Sort of like a glacier that's in the water, a hunk of an iceberg. What you see on the surface is only about 1/10 of the iceberg. 9/10 of it is underwater. Well, here, only 1/3 of the Plymouth Rock is visible. 2/3 is below the sand. Today's rock is estimated to be 1/3 to 1/2 of its original size back in 1620. The top half has been dragged around town, broken, chipped away by 18th and 19th century souvenir hunters. There are bags and pieces of Plymouth Rock all over this country. So if someone comes to you and says, my great-grandfather chipped a piece off Plymouth Rock, and this is it, you can probably believe them, because much chipping away has been done over the centuries. So that is the true meaning, or true story of Plymouth Rock. So when you go there, do not be so disappointed as I was, expecting this grand cliff poking out into the water. No, it's this little pebble in the sand. It's sort of like the first time you go to the Alamo in San Antonio. You've seen all these shows on TV depicting the Alamo and the fights going on and everything, you know, out in the middle of nowhere. And you go there and you're walking through the city streets. There's skyscrapers everywhere. Where's the Alamo? Where's the Alamo? And you turn your head down to the ground and, oh, between the skyscrapers is this little building. That's the Alamo. It's such disappointment here with the Rock. And here is that mausoleum that the Rock is in. They have a statue there of Chief Massasoit. Please read the article on Squanto. It will discuss Massasoit in much greater detail than I have time to. Giving will take place amongst the pilgrims, and they felt that Massasoit, and particularly Squanto, who stayed with them and lived with them, was a godsend, because many had died through the rough winter. How do you plant crops here? What do you plant that grows? Many of the things in England would not necessarily grow in New England. And so Squanto taught them how to raise crops and what to eat. Tomatoes. Europeans thought tomatoes were poisonous. No, that's got good citric acid in it. You really need to eat tomatoes. Squash, all these kind of things. Taught them how to hunt. Grow corn. Staple for everyone in New England was the growing of corn. They had never had corn in England, didn't know what the stuff was. And Squanto taught them how to plant it. You make a little hole, you put the seed in, and you then put a little piece of fish or a minnow in the hole. And you're saying, why do you do that? And we'll discuss it more in detail later. The soil of New England is very poor, and it needs fertilization. And so that little piece of fish or minnow that was stuck in with each one of the seeds was giving some organic material, some fertilizer to that corn seed. Once again, when you read the article on Squanto, it will give you a little more information on actually the first Thanksgiving. And how we depict it today was probably not quite the way it was back then. And whether they had turkey, I have no idea. Most likely they would have had venison rather than turkey as their main course. And another artist's representation of the first Thanksgiving. I just lost my place. Hang on. $35 40 years ago, when I visited Plymouth Rock, it was winter, and so I was told about the recreation of Plymouth Colony, just a little bit up from Plymouth Rock. And during the summer, they operated, not in the winter, and they have people who act in this village here. They wear the garb of how people in the 1620s would have dressed. They even teach them how to speak the Old English that people would have used in the 1620s. And they have set up different shops, stores, where the people would actually be grinding maize, corn, how they would be working different things to create this colony. If you ever get up there, if it's still running, please go see the recreation of the Plymouth Colony. Here is a scene. As I said, they all would have been wearing the clothing of that time period. William Bradford, first governor of Plymouth Colony, a statue there. There is also a fort, meeting house, church, multi-purpose building. Should the Indians attack, should a French, Spanish, Dutch vessel sail by on the coastline, they of course felt that the English were not legally to be here. They were an infringement, and they might want to even attack. This was a place all the colonists could run for refuge, and there's little slit windows here that you could put your musket out and shoot. Meanwhile, it would be very hard to shoot back and get through those little slits in attacking the people in this fort. So yes, on Sundays it would serve as your church building. Anytime you needed meetings, the multi-purpose building for the colony. Religious. They had left England for Holland to worship as they please, to get away from the Church of England. Now they have come to the New World. They were very religious. They were well-educated people. They knew their doctrine. They knew their Bible. They knew their theology. The religious strength behind the New England colonies, which was much stronger than that of the southern colonies. On test number 1, I will ask you, does this more likely describe a New England colony, a middle colony, or a southern colony? The strength of religion will be much more so in the northern colonies than in the middle and southern. And we will begin now with Massachusetts Bay Colony. But we will take a break and start up on that in the next segment.